Okay, so here we are logged into our Office 365 admin portal, and the first thing we'll go in and have a look at is if we go into users, we'll notice that a user called SharePoint has already been configured to use the SharePoint plan as part of this offering. So you'll notice here that the user has the option here ticked for SharePoint Online, so they definitely have access there. If we go back to the admin overview and we go into our to manage our SharePoint, so we click on that, and when this displays, we'll want to check the option to manage our site collections, so we click on that. Now what we'll note in here is we should see by default, we'll notice that there are two site collections. We will have a default site collection, and we'll also have one there for our My Site. So as you can see here, I have a default SharePoint site, and I also have one for my Sites. So again, we can see that the user is set up, and the user there already is a SharePoint site. But what we'll find is if we actually try and log in as that user, we'll find out that we are currently denied. So what we'll do here is just close the browser, and we'll sign out of the administrator and close all that down. So we will now log in to that user, standard user that we've created to access SharePoint. So we'll firstly log into their portal, and this is the standard user portal, and up the top here we'll notice there's an option to go to the team site. So in theory this should take us to the default SharePoint site for our tenant, but what we'll find here is that we come up with an error access denied. So even though we have checked the option to use SharePoint Online and we already have a SharePoint site collection, we find that the user is still denied. So basically what we need to do is that when we create a SharePoint site in Office 365, the users are not automatically added into that site collection. So what we need to do is to go back and log in as the admin, and then go to the SharePoint site and then add those users in the correct location. So let's just close that browser down, and we'll open the browser again, and we will log in as the our Office 365 tenant admin. So I'm going to log back in as the administrator into the Office 365 portal, so I have all the admin functions. I will then again go in to manage my SharePoint site, and this will take me to the second menu screen here. I'll choose to manage my site collections, and again we can verify that we have those two site collections. Now what we can do is we can obviously select this site, and you'll notice up here that we have the ability to set the owners for the SharePoint site. So we could make the user an owner, a site collection administrator, but typically we won't want to do that because that gives them all rights over the site collection. So what we're going to need to do is to open another browser window. We are going to need to log in to the SharePoint site directly. So we type in the URL, and because we're already logged into Office 365, it will log us into the SharePoint site. Now at the moment what we find is basically the administrator, the very first account created with Office 365, is the only account that has access to the SharePoint site. So what we need to do is we need to go into the site actions in the top left. We go down to site settings. This will take us to the admin area, and if we go in here and have a look at site permissions, we'll notice that the people that have access are the administrator login directly, but also there are a number of groups. So we've got team site members, owners and viewers. So if we go into members, what we'll see is there are no people in members. If we go into owners, we'll see that there's nobody in owners, and finally if we go into visitors, we'll see again there's nobody in visitors. So typically what we need to do is we'll need to add our newly created users into the member area. So what we'll do is we'll click on the member group. This is a SharePoint group, so what we need to do now is go new. We want to add a new member to this group. So what I can do is I can type in their name here, but I can also click this little browse button and do a lookup. So if I type in the beginning of the user, hit enter, you'll notice that it brings up that user. I can simply select that person, add, go OK, and that user should now appear in the SharePoint group. So you'll now see that user displayed. You'll also notice that I have an option to send them an email indicating that they now have access. So I uncheck that to prevent that. Go OK, and we should now see that user appear in the team site members. So what that now means is that if we close this and we close this and we sign out of the administrator portal and we now go and log in to the Office 365 portal as that new SharePoint user who we've just given rights to. So get all the details right and then sign in. We'll be taken to the familiar portal, but now what we'll find is if we click on the option to go to the team site, we'll see that we no longer have the access denied. We now have access to the SharePoint site because we have been given the membership rights by adding the user to the group called members. So the important thing to remember is that when you do create a new user with Office 365 in the e-tenants, that user isn't automatically added to any of the SharePoint site collections. You will need to go in and do that manually. To do that, basically log in as the administrator, go to the SharePoint site, go into the site settings, and then add that user to the relevant SharePoint group. So that's all for this video. Thank you very much for watching.